Hey everyone, it's Christian B. Burnaby, Vancouver-based real estate agent. Welcome to Rapid Fire Real Estate, where today we're going to focus on two topics, and both from the online news world, and I'm going to take you through it. First one here is about luxury condos being a possible investment opportunity, and number two, even high-priced earners are now priced out of the market. Lawyers and doctors can't afford homes in Vancouver. Oh my God. So let's talk about that. And again, the purpose of this video today is really to provide some insight, provide some context to what you're reading here online. So you got a couple more angles to look at the news. And if you find that helpful, give us a like, subscribe. And of course, if you need my help, you can find my contact in the show notes below. Okay, what I want to do is start with this first article based on a report by Sotheby's that Vancouver, quote, Vancouver's glut of luxury condos, a potential investment opportunity. Well, not really. I mean, it depends on what we mean by investment opportunity. If we're talking about buying and renting these things out and making a monthly cash flow, hell no. But if we're talking about buying a high-priced luxury condo for a lot less than you would have 5, 6, 7 years ago, hell yeah. And so when we're talking about luxury condos, or at least the way they're talking about it, they're saying $4 million plus. And interestingly, we had a very slow 2024, and one of the upticks in sales was luxury condos. They increased and sales increased by 26%. Again, it's a $4 million plus property. Okay, and that also applies to the detached market. $4 million plus would be considered a luxury detached house. Now, a couple other things to note from this article is that the reason these might be seen as an investment opportunity as well is you've got more of them, and there's a lot less buyers, obviously. Well, when the interest rates go from 2% to 6%, or 4.5% where they are today, it's really expensive to hold these types of properties. And so the buying herd thins out here, and there's just not a lot of people for this product. So if you were a buyer for a luxury condo downtown, we're talking penthouses, close to Cole Harbor, Olympic Village, you don't have a lot of competition here, which is nice. So if you see something that's listed for $3.5 million, you might be able to knock $500,000 off the price. Because if the seller wants to sell, that's what they're going to have to do. And I've made a couple of videos in the past where I've given some specific examples. There was this one sub-penthouse, which was in the news quite a bit, where the guy was having a lot of parties during COVID. And he was in the process, last I checked, of trying to sell his sub-penthouse for something like $600,000-$700,000 less than what he bought it for. And that was only about 3-4 years ago. Another example here was from a pre-sale completing in the downtown area, where some buyers were wanting to walk away from their deposits of over $500,000 because the value of the units was close to $1 million less. So you can see the luxury market here has really taken a good old-fashioned beating. And yeah, sure, if you're someone with very deep pockets and you've got $4, $5, $6 million to spend, you're buying the same product today for probably $1 million less. And if you plan to make Vancouver home, then certainly the downtown, then that is where you might look. Now, keep in mind, of course, Vancouver in the long run is a very desirable place. We're the California of Canada. We've got great weather, right? Even just this week, we've got a frigid Arctic cold air blast coming from the north. We've got temperatures of -30 and -40 in central Canada, all the way out to Quebec and Labrador. And here in Vancouver, we're at about 0, even plus a couple of degrees. So it really is the California of Canada, as I like to say. I think that's about it in terms of the luxury market. I've always said Vancouver is kind of like the Monte Carlo of Canada in the sense, it's the playground for the rich and famous. attracts a lot of rich Asian buyers, you know. And rich Asian buyers, let's be frank, they don't have local connections to contractors. They're not going to want to buy something and put $200,000-$300,000 of renovations into something because they don't want to go through the process. They don't want to go through the headaches. And yeah, they just don't want to do it. So that's why they buy luxury or they buy new. Now, let's move on to our second topic. Second topic here is an article titled Metro Vancouver's Housing Market Worsens, Now Pricing Out Even High Earners. And this is a report from Vancity. And so I want to touch on some of the key specifics here and just provide a little context for you. So one of the first things they say is that homes are getting out of reach. And yes, that is true. Because of the high home prices here, and you imagine even a townhouse for $1.3 million, if it goes up 10% in value, it's gone up $130,000 from one year to the next. And for most people, you can't save $130,000. Even if you're making $200,000 of family income, you're paying a lot of that in tax. And then you've got, your own personal expenses and mortgage, and you got for kids expenses and so on. You just can't. The example I always say, it's like the market is running the 400-meter track on a treadmill, and you're just trying to keep up with the rabbit, and it's hard to do. Of course, the easy solution to this is more supply, but we've got so much red tape at the different levels of government, especially at the municipal level, that it just takes too much time to get supply out there. And when you've got a growing population and ever shrinking supply, it just drives up prices. Although that has steadied in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. Now, a couple of the things here they're saying is the average monthly income now for someone who is buying these kinds of home, this is a family income, by the way, is $14,400 for people aged between 43 and 58. And it's $11,800 for buyers aged between 19 and 30. And so they're talking about family income. Now, household income, I should say. Now, if you're wondering, well, why is there a $2,500 difference? Of course, young people are just getting going. They haven't had a chance to build their careers. They haven't been in the workforce for 20, 25 years. They don't have the skills or the connections yet. So, I mean, you just imagine a plumber starting at 21 versus one who's been in business for 30 years. The guy's been in business for 30 years. He's going to have a whole client list, right? So he's just going to be making more income. No surprise there to see that older folks are making more than younger people on average. A few other numbers here. It says the average home price is $2 million in Metro Vancouver, which is correct. That would be, from Vancouver, west side would be higher than that. But if you took Vancouver East, Burnaby, West Coquitlam, those would be the numbers. The good stuff in New West would all be around that price. Average condo price, $757,000. That depends on where you are. And that would be a one bedroom downtown. That would be a one bedroom in North Burnaby called Brentwood. And even Metrotown, I'd say. Once you get east of that turns into a two bedroom. So once you're in Burnaby East, New West, or even Coquitlam, you're looking at something that's 10 years old. That's a two bedroom. Okay. And it doesn't have to be too old. I'm not talking about 1970s here. I'm saying just something in Burnaby East or in New West, Coquitlam West, that would be that could be 5-10 years old, concrete building, maybe 800 square feet, two bedroom. Okay, we discussed the generational gap, which is to be expected. Older folks are going to be earning more. Some other key highlights here. Mortgages spiked during the pandemic because, of course, the interest rates went up by about 66% for the average mortgage, went from $2,700 a month to $4,400 a month. Yeah, that ain't cheap. Best rule of thumb I have is that 1/3 of your income should go towards your household expenses, whether that's a mortgage or that's your rent. Now, why 1/3? That's something I've gleaned just from reading books and financial books and so on, and it does seem to make sense. It leaves you a lot of buffer there for other expenses, maybe saving for going back to school and so on. Now, what's the average down payment, you ask? Good question. The average down payment for a detached house is $840,000, and the average down payment for a house in the Fraser Valley, we're talking Surrey Langley, was $500,000. Okay, well, that's a lot of money. Now, I'm sometimes asked by people, where do people get all this money? I would say the biggest source of this money is, one, people's own savings. Yes, you'd be surprised how much people can save. Two, the equity in their home. If they've been owning for 5+ years, surprisingly, people have built up quite a bit of equity. They may have had $100,000, right? Values of homes increase, and maybe they've got $250,000 of equity in their home. The third source is often family. And I'm not talking, this article goes on to call family wealth. It's not necessarily the wealthy per se. I mean, sometimes I meet people who own a detached house in Burnaby, and the dad is a handyman, and the mom works as a janitor. And you're asking, well, how is that possible? Well, they bought 25 years ago. Yes, it was cheaper then, but they may have come from Taiwan. They came from South Korea. They had some savings. They were working 2-3 jobs at the time. They just built up enough savings to climb into the residential housing market at that period of time, which was still expensive even then for most people. And now, of course, 25 years later, fast forward, and that $300,000 house is worth $2 million. And so that's what they can take the equity out and give it to maybe one daughter, one son, another son, and so on. And that's what a lot of people will do. Okay, so that kind of answers the question: where are people getting all this money? Article goes on to call it the inheritocracy. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we benefit from the fact that maybe our parents made the decision to choose a city like Vancouver. If your parents chose to live in Manhattan 30 years ago and they bought a place or two, well, your family is doing pretty well. So what do people do? We've already discussed that to a degree in terms of the article goes on to describe creative solutions to address rising housing costs, including, of course, renting rooms, perhaps in your basement, or renting out the basement, which we see a lot of really right across the Lower Mainland from the west side all the way out to Langley. Okay, I mean, a couple other things you might see people do to lessen the impact of the high price of mortgages is the lengthening the amortization period. And so some of the banks were letting people do that, and it says here the Vancity was allowing buyers to lengthen the amortization period to 30 years. That can knock down your monthly payments. The other thing that I've always proposed and have said in these videos is go back to the 35-year amortization. I mean, it's not such a radical change that it's going to drive housing prices up to inflated values, but at the same time, if it knocks $300-400 off your monthly mortgage, why not, right? So sometimes just making small changes like that can help increase some affordability. Of course, the main thing always gets back to you got to have more homes out there, especially if you're going to have a growing population like we do, and they got to get built faster. And that's where the cities come in. Okay, folks, thank you for watching. It's good to see you, and thanks to all my new subscribers. We'll see you next time.